Okay, today we're going to do the Excel Grader project, and the first thing you're going to need to do is log into My IT Labs and go into Course Materials. Go to the Excel Grader project, which will be the Excel Labs. And in here we're going to open Grader project. We need to download the files, and you'll need the bottom one, which is an Excel spreadsheet, and the top one, which is the instructions, and it gives you the point scheme. So I'm going to minimize these, but I'm going to leave them open because we have to re-upload our completed project to here. Now here is the file that we're going to be working with. It's exploring_eo2_grader_ir-1. You don't want to change the name of this file when you work on it. You should absolutely save this file to your desktop. So save as. Don't change the name of it, and just save it to your desktop. If you have somewhere else you'd like to save it, that's fine, as long as you know where it's going to be. And save it. If you change the name of the file, you will not be able to re-upload it. It will just tell you that it's not the correct file, because it's looking for that file name when you go to upload it, so it won't work. So the instructions look like this. They're very good, and they tell you exactly what you're going to need to be doing. So we'll be taking a look at these as we go through. The first one is to start Excel and open the downloaded Excel workbook. We've already done that, and of course you don't get any points for it anyway. And actually, I noticed that the name added a 1 to the end of it. I'll remove that before we upload it. Now it tells us in cell G5, enter a formula that calculates the sales tax by multiplying the base price of the car in F5 by 7%, and then copy the formula down to cells G6 through G16. That's what the colon means, through. So this is just telling you almost step by step what you have to do. So we're going to go back over here now in cell G5. So I'm going to click into cell G5, and I can see that it's highlighted now. And I can also see over here that it tells me what active cell I'm in. So I want to enter a formula that calculates the sales tax by multiplying the base price of the car in F5 by 7%. So first off, all formulas in Excel start with an equal sign. So here we're going to use equal sum. And I'm going to show you how we do formulas a few different ways today. The first few I'm going to do with you, and then after that I'm going to show you how to look them up. You're going to be using formulas when you get to accounting classes and whatnot, and you're going to need to be able to look them up. There's so many formulas in Excel that we could be showing you formulas all day long. So it's equals sum and then an opening parenthesis, and now we're going to put our formula in here, and we're going to multiply the base price of the car in F5. So I can do one of two things. I can type F5, or I can just click in F5. So there's F5 right there, and it puts the F5 in for me. And we want to multiply it, which is the asterisk, by 7%, 0.07, and then a closing parenthesis. And then if I go Shift Enter, it's I can just go Enter, but the sales tax comes up as $686. Now the advantage of using F5, you can see it up here in the formula bar, is that if I change, the number is not hard coded in there. The number's not hard coded in there. Excuse me again. You're using just the number that's in F5. So if F5 times 0.07. If I were to change this number here, it's 9,800 now. If I change it to 9,300, it changes the tax automatically. Where if I hard-coded 9,800 in there, it wouldn't do that, and it makes the recalculations automatically. So it makes your spreadsheet much more powerful, because you don't have to go in and recalculate all that stuff. Okay, so the next step in this was to copy this formula down to G6 through G16. There's two ways to copy. I'm going to show you one right now, and I'll show you the next one on the next step. So you can see the border around the cell with the thick square in the lower right hand corner, and if I move my cursor over it, you can see it turns from a fat cross to a skinny cross, and what's there I can just drag it down, and it copies the formula down, and it modifies it each time as it goes down. Here I'm in F9, or I'm in G9, and it says the base price is F9 times 0.07. And that F9 is what's called a relative reference. As I copy the formula down, it copies down the same way I've moved. I moved down one cell, it moves down one cell, right? That's called a relative reference. We're going to use an absolute reference later, and I'll show you that. So that's the end of step 2, right? We're going to move on now to step 3. Right, we've done step 2. Here's step 3. In H5, I want to enter a formula that calculates, that adds the sales tax in G5, the one we just made, to the base price of the car in F5, and copy the formula down to cells H6 through H16. So we want to calculate in here the total of the car, or the base price plus the tax. So I'm going to equals sum again, and it's going to be F5 plus G5, closing parenthesis, enter. And now if I want to copy them down, the last time we dragged it down. This time we're going to do it another way. If I get the fat cross over the corner and it turns to a small cross, if I just double click right here, it fills it down all the way to the bottom of the data. And again, the references change from F5 and G5 to F10 and G10. Okay, that's, again, it's a relative reference. So now we're going to have to do the next step, and that is in I5 we're going to enter a function to calculate the monthly payment for the buyers. The function will refer to the annual interest rate in D21 divided by 12, and a loan term of 48 months, and the total cost of the car in H5. We have to refer to the annual interest rate in D21 as an absolute cell reference. So now we're going to go from, we were using a relative cell, reference, now we're going to use an absolute reference, and I'm going to show you the difference right now. So we're going to get in cell I5, and we're going to calculate a payment. So now to calculate a payment, we're just going to use the payment function. So it's equals PMT. And after, we'll talk about IntelliSense in a second. So the first thing we got to put in here is the interest rate, which is in D21. So if you look over here, you see interest 6.25. It's right there, D21. But like the other formulas, when we copy down, they move down. And if this moves down, the very next cell has nothing in it. So there'll be no interest rate. And then a couple cells down below that have different numbers in them for another formula we're going to build later. And they're not, they're 6.25. So we need that to remain absolute, right? We don't want that to move down when we copy it. And to do that, we turn it into an absolute reference. So an absolute reference has dollar signs in front of the column and row headings. So to get that, you can either type them, right? $D, $21, or you can press the F4 key. And you can see when I pressed F4, they appeared there. Now there are times when you might want an absolute reference where just the row stays absolute but the column is relative, or where the column is relative and the row is absolute. And that works like that. So, but we want right now an absolute reference for both column and row, and so we're going to have a $sign in front of D and a $sign in front of 21. And then we have to divide by 12. So that's /12. Now our next argument is the term, and you can see underneath here it's giving you a combination of what do we need to put in for this formula. And we have to separate each argument by a comma. So we put a comma in there. And you can see the next one starts to get highlighted. And if I want to know what it is, I can click on it. And it'll give me, well, I must have that feature shut off on mine. So anyways, we're going to say 48 months here. Right? Now, typically when you do this in other payment calculations, you're going to be referencing a cell that has the number of years of a loan in it. Say, for example, in this case, you might have a 4 for 4 years. So to get months, you'd have to multiply by 12 in the formula. In this case, the instructions were to use a loan term of 48 months, so we don't have to do that. So then we go comma, and then we want the total cost of the car, which is H5. So I'm just going to click into H5. And then we would put a comma if we were going to use the other arguments. You can see in the formula in the bottom here, but we aren't using those because they're optional. If they're in square brackets, they're optional. And we don't need them for this formula. So I'm just going to put my closing parenthesis there and hit enter. And there's my answer. It's negative 247.47. Now Microsoft has these show up as negative because it's money out of your wallet, right? It's money you're paying out. If you want that to show up as positive, I can press F2 and I can see the formula again. I would have to put the negative sign in front of the H5, and then it would actually show up as a positive number. Some people like to have that if you're doing it for another class where they require that. That's how you turn that into a positive. But for this exercise, it should remain negative. And we have to copy this down. Okay? And so the next one we're doing, in cell J5, we're going to create a lookup function that returns the salesperson commission that corresponds to the base cost of the car in F5. The base cost, not the total cost. We're going to use the range C24 through D28, all absolute, as a lookup table, and return the commission rate from column 2. This is one of the more difficult formulas we're doing, but VLOOKUPs are very powerful, and I'm sure that you'll use them often. So you're going to start out by going equals VLOOKUP, VLO, and you notice that it pops up right in there, and there's a big box here that tells me what it does. And the name of the function is right here, VLOOKUP. Well, if I hit the tab key right now, it enters it in there for me. And the nice thing about that is, if you type like I do, you don't have any typos. So now it's looking, it says here, it tells me what's my first argument, the lookup value, right? So the lookup value, as they told us, is F5. So I'm just going to click in F5. F5. Okay. And then we got to put a comma in here. And you can now, when you're building your formula, you notice the F5 is light blue and the box around F5 itself is light blue. So you can look and watch your formula being built. So the next one we want to do is we're going to look up the table array. It's telling us that right here, and it said that in the column where the lookup value is. right? The table we want to look up in. But again, we have to make this an absolute reference. So I've just highlighted it, and I highlighted the whole table. And it put the numbers in there, C24 through D28. Now if I hit the F4, it turns them both into absolute references, and that's what I want. I don't want to, when I copy this down, have it start moving it. That will mess up my formula. It will become useless to me. So we're going to put a comma in here, go to our next argument, which is column index. So it wants to know what column am I going to return. It always looks up its value in the leftmost column. So that would be this column right here. And then with a lookup table, we could be returning the 12th column. It doesn't matter. In this case, there's only 2 columns, and we're going to return the second column, which is right here. Those are percentages. So comma 2, comma, and then either true or false. True for approximate match, which seems counterintuitive, but that's the Microsoft logic. Or false for an exact match. So in this case, we want an approximate match because we want to get as close to the number, right, with the base price of the car, $9,800 in this formula. We want to go as close to $9,800 as we can without going over. And of course, that would be returning me with $3,000 and the commission rate of 1%, right? So I'm going to say true here is what I want, and then I'm going to put in my closing parenthesis. Then if I hit enter, it gives me the commission rate of 1%. So I'm going to copy this down, and you can see the percentages change as we go down, and that's exactly what we want, right? They should be changing. Okay. So I'm going to bring the instructions back over here. And we did the next one, copied the function. Copy the VLOOKUP down. And you can see the points that we're getting for all of these as we move along. In cell G19, we want to enter a function that sums the cells H5 through H16. Okay. So in cell G19, that's where I am. We've already done this sum, and I'm going to just go equals sum. Opening parenthesis, H5 through H16. I'm just going to highlight those cells and put a closing parenthesis on it, and there you go. 284,620 is the answer you should come up with. Okay. Now we're going to start looking up functions. In cell G20, enter a function to average the cells in range H5 through H16. So now we're going to be doing the functions in a little different way. Because, like I mentioned to you, there's no way I can show you how to do all these formulas and functions, and so I'm going to show you how to look some up, okay? So, to calculate the average price, this is a pretty easy function. I am in the cell where I want to create the function, and I'm going to move up here to the formula bar. That's this bar right here, where you could actually type a formula. And I'm going to click the little FX symbol there. It's for insert a function. And this opens up. And it tells me what functions I have, and I can type in a brief description so I can look for one. I can look them up based on these things here. And here are some of the functions here. And down below it gives you a description of what they do. So I'm going to type in calculate average. And say go, and it will come up with a bunch of averaging functions here. So I can look through these and see which is which. And I happen to know average is actually the one that we want. And it returns the average, the arithmetic mean of its arguments, which can be numbers or names, arrays, whatever. That's what we want. So I'm going to click OK. Now it comes up with a box where I can build this formula right here. So the function we want to average H5 through H16. It being Excel thinks it knows where I want to enter these, and it's was thinking I want to do G5 through G19, and that's because I'm in the G column. But I, in fact, want to do the H column. So just leaving this box right here, I can highlight the H column like this, and it'll put those numbers in this box. And if I look down here, it's actually giving me 23,718 as my average, right? It gives me the average that it's coming up with. So I'm going to say OK. And it puts it in there, and it built the formula for me, right? So we're gonna look up the rest of the formulas this way, almost all of them, and build the rest of our formulas this way. So now we want to look up the lowest price. So again, I'm going to look at the instructions. In G21, enter a function that calculates the lowest value, and also right after that, we're going to calculate the highest value. I'll look at a couple of them so we don't have to go back over there. So the lowest price, I'm going to go formula function, and I'm going to go calculate so then it comes through here with a bunch of them. Rank, EQ, you can read all these. I'm actually going to move down until I see the one I want. I know which one it is. Interestingly enough, it's not here. Or maybe I passed it. I'm going to change the way I say this. Calculate minimum. The one I'm looking for is min. Huh. Which is the opposite of max. I'm just going to say minimum. There it is, min. Returns the smallest number in a set of values. So sometimes you have to look around a little more for the one you want. So we want to calculate the minimum, and again we're going to use cells H5 through H16 and say OK. And it tells me the cheapest car we sold was $32.10. Now obviously we can look in that small table and see that, but if you were at Best Buy or Wegmans or some of your table had 100,000 entries, there's no way you could do that. So we want to calculate the highest price, so I'm going to go into the formula bar, and I already know it's max. There's max, returns the largest value in a set of values. Okay. And we want to return today's date. Now the purpose of this, you could just type and you would get the wrong answer on this exercise. Just type the date in there. But when you open it a week from today, it's going to still have April 12th in there. And if we enter this today function in here, it actually, every time you open it, it's going to have today's date in there. Now you can use this for many reasons. You can set it up where it actually, after you print something, it will return the last time that it's been printed or the last time the report has been run. We're just entering it in for today's date at this time, but today's date. And there's a bunch of them here that you can use. And the one that we want is today, and it returns the current date formatted as a date. There's many of them here. I happen to know the one that they're looking for in greater. So it's just equals today with opening and closing parentheses, and it looks like that. So now the next one is a little more difficult. We did this one. In G24, we're going to enter an if function that will calculate the bonus for the part-time sales agents if the value in the cell G19, total for all sales, is greater than 250,000. We're going to multiply G19 by 0.015. Otherwise, we're going to return 0. So this, between VLOOKUP and this one, they're the two most difficult formulas. But it's telling you right in here it's an if formula that we're going to do. So we're going to be in the bonus cell G24. And I'm going to use the formula bar again. And if we look in the most recently used, if will probably be in there. And it is. It's right there. Right, so I'm going to just go OK. So the first box that I have to fill out on this is logical test. Right? What am I'm saying if what? My logical test. And in the instructions it tells you, well, bring them over here again. If the value in G19 is greater than 250,000. So that's the first thing we're going to do. If the value in G19, I'm just going to type G19 in, is greater than, I just used the greater than symbol, 250,000, right? And it's actually testing it right now. It can see it's greater than 250,000 is 284. If I said 290,000, it would show false over here. It's doing the test while we're typing the formula in. So now it wants to return the value if true. So if true, it's going to be G19 times 0.015. If false, it's just going to be 0. They didn't sell over $250,000 worth of vehicles. They do not get a bonus. Okay? And we're just going to say OK. Now it returns that, and it doesn't return it in the format of currency. And the next instruction in step 13 would be to format cell G24 with currency format. And there's two ways to do this, but you need to do it the first way I'm going to show you. Okay? So you would need to be in the cell like this and right click. Go up to the format cell, click format cell. And then the format cell box opens, and we're going to go to currency. Now we need two places, and you can pick your symbol, but we want the $. And you can say OK when it's two decimal places, and we say OK. So then you come back and it's formatted into currency with the $sign directly in front of the 4. Actually, if you were in that cell G24, up under the format number, there's this thing to click on to create format into currency, and you can change the type of currency, and you can just click there. But in this exercise, that does not give you a correct answer. I'm not really sure why, but it doesn't. So you should be saving this right along. We formatted it into currency. And the last step in cell C17, we enter a function that counts the number of entries in the range C5 through C16. So we're going to have to get into C17. It's right here. We're going to look here, and I'm going to say count entries. I'm just going to say count, I guess. Let's see what that does. So here's my counts. Count, return the number of cells in a range that contain numbers. Well, I'm not counting numbers. I'm counting vehicles or vehicle descriptions. Counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. That's really all I care about. So I can count and see how many cars are in here. So I'm going to pick count A. And I'm going to select all these. And then click OK. And it says there's 12 cars here. And if I were to remove one, it changes immediately to 11. Right? So that's what we want. And if you save this and close it, you're done. And it's more or less. And we're going to have to upload the completed files. So we're going to browse to it. It's on my desktop. And I'm going to cancel for a second because I remember it put a it added a 1 to the end of mine. So I'm going to remove that because it'll mess up my grading. I don't want to fail this. So now I click on there and I find it. Here it is right here. Open and upload. So once I've uploaded it to here, I'm going to finish, submit for grading, and then we return to course. And now I can go over to here. It says that I passed it, but it doesn't tell you the grade, so I can go to grades. I can select the Excel Labs, and you can see that I received a 100. And if you wanted to, you could go like this, view submissions. I've done this a couple times. I had done this in March for some demo for one of the other classes. And you can look in here and see, and obviously I got all points. So in this one here I skipped one so I could show where it shows something missing. So you go in here and you can see the points possible were 11, the number of points attained were 11. But if I scroll down, I'm going to find one here where I did the VLOOKUP and I did something different in that. But you can see it's 5 points and I got 0 points for copying it down, because actually I copied it another way. But it shows you what you're doing wrong in the thing, and you can go back and correct it and resubmit it. Okay, so that's it. I hope that was helpful.